Language and linguistics. Characteristics of language. Language is a means of communication. There is a very important means of communication between humans. There are many other means of communication used by humans. For example, gestures, nods, winks, flags, smiles, horns, shorthand, braille alphabet, mathematical symbols, Morse code, sirens, sketches, maps, acting, miming, dancing, and so on. Language is a carrier of civilization and culture, as human thoughts and philosophy are conveyed from one generation to the other generation through the medium of language. It is as important as the air we breathe and is the most valuable possession of man. 2. Arbitrary. Language is arbitrary in the sense that there is no inherent relationship between the words of a language and their meanings or the ideas conveyed by them. There is no reason why a female adult human being be called a woman in English, Istri in Hindi, Aurat in Urdu, Jen in Persian, Famine in French, Tinvi in Punjabi. Selection of these words in the languages mentioned here is purely arbitrary or an accident of history. Onomatopoeia is a term used for words that imitate the sounds they stand for. For example, bank, third, bus, hum, etc. Third, language is a system of communication systems or duality. Language is not amorphous, disorganized or chaotic combination of sounds. Any brick may be used anywhere in a building, but it is not so with sounds or graphic symbols standing for the sounds of a language. Sounds are arranged in a certain fixed or established systematic order to form meaningful units or words. Similarly, words are also arranged in a particular system to frame acceptable, meaningful sentences. These systems operate at two levels: one, phonological, that is, phonemic or sound system, and two, syntactical system, that is, morphemic or written system. This property of language is called duality. 4. Language is primarily vocal. Language is primarily made up of vocal sounds only, produced by a physiological articulatory mechanism in the human body. In the beginning, it must have appeared as vocal sounds only. Writing must have come much later as an intelligent attempt to represent vocal sounds. Writing is the graphic representation of the sounds of the language. The letters K and Q represent only the K sound, ig sound. Graphic symbols had to be invented for the sake of some sounds. There are a number of languages which continue to exist even today in the spoken form only. They do not have written form. A child learns to speak first. Writing comes much later. Also, during his lifetime, a man speaks much more than he writes. The total quantum of speech is much larger than the total quantum of written materials. It is because of these reasons that modern linguists say that speech is primary and writing is secondary. 5. Displacement. Animal communication, as in the case of communication system in birds, dogs, monkeys, insects, etc., is limited to are related to their immediate time and place, here and now or near about. But human language users are capable of producing messages pertaining to the present, past and future, near or distant places, that is, in a multi-dimensional setting. One can say, for example, I was 200 kilometers north of New York last month, but will be deep down in the south of America next week. I witnessed a rugby match in September last, but will be an umpire in the one-day cricket match at the Mohali cricket ground. This property of language is called displacement. 6. Language is a form of social behavior. Language has to be learnt. This learning is possible only in society. A human child learns to speak the language of the community or the group in which he or she is placed. A Chinese infant, if placed in an Indian family, will easily learn to speak an Indian language. He or she picks up the language of the social setup in which he or she grows. Language is thus a form of social behavior. 7. Language is a symbol system. A symbol is a concrete event, object or mark that stands for something relatively abstract. The cross plus, for example, is a symbol that stands for the great sacrifice of Jesus Christ, that is, his suffering and death on the cross. It is also a symbol of Christian. Similarly, words are symbols that stand for objects. The symbol table stands for an object consisting of a wooden board supported by 4 or 3 legs. A speaker or writer wants to communicate with another fellow being, puts his message across in the form of symbols. The receiver of the message decodes this message sent in the form of symbols and interprets these to arrive at a certain meaning. Thus, language is a symbol system, though different languages have different symbols. 8. Productivity. Language is creative and productive in the sense that a user of a language does not always produce only sentences that he has heard or learned previously. On the basis of his knowledge of the grammar and syntax of the language, he can always produce new sentences, write new poems, or produce many other kinds of new literature. He can produce an infinite number of sentences as per the eventuality he is facing within the framework of the grammar of the language being used by him. This property of language is called productivity. 9. Interchangeability. It is an important characteristic of human language that it permits a speaker to become a listener and a listener to become a speaker, vice versa, without impairing the function of language, that is communication. This property has been named interchangeability by Charles F. Cockett. It can also be called reciprocity, that is, any speaker or sender of a linguistic signal can also be a listener or receiver. Cultural transmission. A major difference between animal language and human language is the cultural transmission of human language. While animals get their language genetically, human beings acquire language Human languages are placed down by the society in which one lives and grows up. 11. Discreteness. A major difference between animal language and human language is the discreteness of the sounds. Discreteness of human language. This refers to the uniqueness of the sounds used in human languages. Every language uses a set of different sounds. Each of these sounds is different from the rest and are combined to form new meanings. A sound can be repeated or combined with another to form a new meaning, but animal languages do not have this feature of discreteness. 13. Specialization. This means that the organs used for producing speech are specially adapted to that task. The human lips, tongue, throat, etc. have been specialized into speech apparatus instead of being merely eating apparatus. They are in many other animals. Dogs, for example, are not physically capable of all of the speech sounds that human produce because they are having lack of necessary specialized organs. Thank you.